Hi there, welcome back to the podcast. Let me turn my phone on flight mode. So, if you're new to the podcast, a lot of my podcasts are recorded in the park. I'm Cassie, by the way. A lot of my podcasts are recorded in the park because mum life. Having to have, trying to find time to actually record a podcast when you have a 9-month-old baby is pretty tough. So you'll always hear kind of like the sound of birds and random dogs or something, depending where I am. Today it's the park, and I'm pushing the pram. Bonnie is due for a nap. She's kind of rubbing her eyes. It's actually way colder than I thought, and she's got loads of blankets on, but she keeps sticking her hands out the pram, and I keep covering up, then she sticks them out, and I'm thinking, oh my god, she's gonna get too cold. I don't know if you know this, like if you haven't had kids, if you've had kids you'll know this, but they can't regulate their body temperature to something crazy like 18 months, so the whole time you're kind of thinking, okay, they're too warm, are they too cold? Like, I'm cold now, my hands are cold recording this, so I'm sure she's cold. So yeah, alright, so I have been pretty AWOL from the podcast for a while. That's for a number of reasons. Obviously had a break postpartum, and then the direction of the business changed. So I did my last astrology reading ever. Not ever, but probably for a very long time. When was it? Like last weekend. It was actually for a family member, which is really cool. And it was a gift. But a lot of you have seen on my Instagram that I've paused my astrology reading for now, and there's a few reasons for that, which I'll probably talk about another time, or it might kind of seep into this episode you're listening to now. But yeah, I wanted to talk about today my reason I've been so quiet, the reason that the business has changed and will be changing, and it's really about my journey with postpartum depression, which is quite funny because I really was maybe a little bit naive, because I didn't think, with all the practices I had in place and everything I kind of knew, that it would happen to me. And I know these things don't happen to us, on like, if you're going to think on like a kind of esoteric level, but nonetheless, I found myself feeling like a crazy psycho postpartum, and it was a really hard time for me. And the last few months I've really kind of been coming out of it a lot more. The last month has been another turning point, and I think it'll be upwards from now. But I know a lot of mums now don't even recognise if they have like a postpartum depression. And like, when I say postpartum depression, I'm kind of cloaking in everything from postpartum anxiety to, there's even postpartum psychosis, which is, quite dangerous. That's something different. But you might have like a postpartum eating disorder relapse, which was what happened to me, postpartum OCD, some kind of, for lack of better words, malfunction postpartum that isn't particularly pleasant to go through and to experience. So anyway, Bonnie's really funny. Just giving you a side note, she's in the pram trying to sleep. She thrashes her head side to side, and then her hat kind of goes over her eyes and she actually can't see. So, I had all these practices in place, and I had in the back of my mind that it could be a factor. I could be someone who was more liable to postpartum depression. I've got a history of quite intense trauma. Those of you that don't know my journey, briefly, I had an eating disorder from the age of 11. My mum died when I was very young. I kind of had quite an abusive relationship with a family member I had to live with after my mum died. It's like a whole thing. And various other things that just kind of impacted or added to that along the way. My dad has not been around really most of my life. He's been very in and out, and that relationship has healed in the past few years in a very special way, but that was only through my own inner work and what I did through psychotherapy and such things. And so, like, before I became pregnant, I was in quite a good place. There were a few things that maybe looking back was still a bit disordered regarding my eating, and it really work out like 5 times a day like I used to, and I wasn't like restricting all calories and kind of on the lean mean body machine or not eating. I was in quite a good place, but actually looking back, I feel that there were some perhaps controlled behaviours with food, maybe like just so subtle. And then I became pregnant, and it was a time where I was nourishing my body. I felt okay doing that, but the fact that I still had to think about these things shows that there was still something going on. There was some thoughts about food, and largely though my pregnancy was really pleasant, I was happy, my business was thriving. Somewhere along the way I remember thinking, once I've had the baby, I don't know if I'm going to be able to work. I don't know how easy I'm going to find it, which I guess is normal. But anyway, then it came to my birth, and some of you know my birth story. It's somewhere down in the podcast, but it was just a bit crazy. And post-birth, I really felt like I had no emotional support, but I guess I did in ways. However, it brought up all of the things that I really needed from my mum, and obviously she passed away many, many years ago, but I had never processed that, as in the time she passed away I was very young, and I went into like a total trauma response, just suddenly like got busy, didn't think about it, and I never thought about it until I gave birth. And it was like, your hormones are pretty crazy postpartum anyway, but I gave birth. I had like a full-on trauma response from my birth. So I was like hearing babies crying and this phone ringing, which I know sounds crazy, but the minute that something kind of went really wrong in my birth and I felt like everything was out of control, my phone was ringing, and all I could hear was this ringtone for days, but weeks even. It was a crazy time. It is. Anyone who's going to give birth, like, you might have a great birth, you might feel like you're very out of control. I would say a lot more women say that their birth was traumatic than not, and I think that's something different, something systemic, and that we're not talking about birth in the right way, or it's not being honoured in the right way. There's a problem with the system somewhere, big time, because I felt very alone. I needed my doula there, and because of the restrictions I couldn't have my doula there, and that was really, really hard for me. I was largely ignored, so that was like a whole thing, which maybe I'll talk about another time. But postpartum was really strange time. So we are still living with my in-laws because the house move still hasn't happened, which is a whole thing. Anyone who knows me knows this whole house move thing. We'll be like, oh God, that's still going on. But postpartum, I like swung back into grief. It was like I had this new baby and I couldn't feel joy. The only thing I could feel was complete terror and complete fear. And I was in complete shock. Luckily, physically, because I'd done a lot of birth prep, like with the Annie ball and stuff, I didn't tear at all. I'd done a lot of birth prep, like from the word go. I was really lucky in that respect. But emotionally, I was in a bad way. And I'll say this, my immediate surroundings, so, oh my God, I don't know what that noise was. maybe it's the farmer's fields. Anyway, in my house, there was not much emotional support. Like there was, but I didn't feel, I think there would have been if I could have spoken up, but I didn't feel safe enough to. And there was a whole thing about not feeling comfortable to like speak about, because you just had a baby, and then everyone's like bringing presents for the baby, everyone's celebrating the baby, and everyone wants to see you, and like obviously you want to be polite. Next birth it's not happening, believe me, but they're bringing all these gifts, and I remember sitting around in the living room, and there was like all of Alex's family there, and feeling like I wanted to scream, not at them, but like just like, someone help me, I literally can't cope. I needed someone there 24/7 to literally help me. We had trouble with breastfeeding, which is a whole other thing, but I was just, it was crazy, and because of how I was feeling, I felt like I couldn't eat. I felt it was like full on shock, and I didn't feel love. I just felt terror. Every time I had to breastfeed, I felt terror. The whole time I felt terror. Everything I tried to do, I felt terror. And I didn't realise it was like a big issue, because like you get to 10 weeks, 8 weeks, and the baby, that is, they're 8 weeks old, and your hormones are crazy before then anyway, and you're crying a lot. And I remember feeling like, okay, I can't cope, but I knew it would be really hard at the beginning, so there was some level of like being okay in the craziness, and being like, okay, well, I'm in shock, and just trying to talk to my friends. But then this is when the question kind of comes to a lot of women. I'm still feeling bad, I'm still feeling really purposeless, I'm feeling like I can't cope, I'm feeling quite disconnected, I'm feeling a lot of shame, like I'm not enough, like I'm a failure. I remember thinking a lot like of the anorexic thoughts as well, on top of that, like the feeling of, like when I talk about it now, the feeling of heaviness in my body. Like I just felt panic, fear, all the low vibing stuff. And then, I've got this beautiful baby who I can't feel that love emotion at all. I just felt touched out. Like there wasn't that kind of a lack of complete bonding, but like I really was in like do mode. I couldn't just be there, because when you're a mom, there's always something to do, and I was just constantly doing and not being. So it was like sterilizing, then feeding, and doing all the other things, because I don't know where time goes, but there's always something to do, believe me. But I didn't even know how to delegate, how to ask for help, because I'd always been independent. When my mum died, I was independent. I don't actually know how to ask for help, and that's been a big lesson the last 10 months, because Bonnie is like 10 months old next week, and it was crazy. So if you're a type A person and you're postpartum, or you resonate with this, or you're someone who wants children, that would be a big thing I would just gently encourage you to reflect on, is, okay, where do I need to ask for help more? Because postpartum, that was like leading, I think, to my burnout, but also the need for control. So everything comes back to me like, how is she gonna sleep? Because I'm desperate for sleep. So all the day I'm like making sure she has all her milk feeds. Like I don't want her to scream at bedtime, I want her to be calm. So everything I do kind of like is about sleep, which is just crazy, but if you're a mom you'll understand. But even that becomes a task in itself, because you end up desperately trying to get their sleep right. And some babies, let me tell you, don't want to stay in their crib on their own at night. She does once a week, but usually at some point she wants to come in our bed, which is very frowned upon, yada yada yada. At the end of the day, if we both sleep, I literally couldn't care less at this point. So that's a whole other thing that you'll have to come to when you have children, if you've not had them, or if you've had them, you're like, yeah. And some people are like, yeah, my baby sleeps fine, lucky. Let me tell you, Bonnie, we did everything sleep training, but that girl once a night wants to come in our bed and then she'll sleep. So fine, whatever. But largely I think we're quite lucky. I've heard some quite difficult stories about baby sleep, because there's all these things pre-pregnancy. You're pregnant, everyone's like looking after you, the hospital look after you. Then postpartum, literally nothing. You see the midwife, I think like 2 or 3 times. A health visitor comes, checks you're okay. You've met them once, so it's like, okay, I think I'm all right. And also there's something about me that had a bit too much pride to say, actually, I don't think something is right here. And when I did phone the doctors, all they could offer me was like citalopram, which is an antidepressant. And for me, I didn't feel that was right, because I was like, there's so much coming up here that I want to heal from. And no amount of therapy would help. None. And you go from this space of being so cared for in pregnancy to suddenly being like irrelevant, because everyone cares about the baby, everyone's interested in the baby. Someone might ask how you're feeling, but rarely. You know, most people just come and bring presents for the baby and that's it. Let me tell you, if you've got a friend who is going to give birth, or you have given birth or are going to give birth, just please reflect on what things you would need. Like for me, I just wanted someone to have her so I could like sleep, but even then, like that did happen, but I didn't know how to ask for that. I didn't even know that was what I needed. I say that I needed people to bring me food, and I think that's true. I think you do need people to pop over and make you a meal. I think that would be really helpful. But if I'm really, really honest, the thing that I needed the most was someone to come and sit with me in the nights, or just to be with me through the nights. Those late night feeds. I remember watching like all of Friends series 1 in like 4 weeks, because the night feeds I just had to just like literally watch TV, because I had to numb out, because I was so sad. The grief that I felt was just huge. I remember looking at the cat and being like, oh my God, the life was so much easier when it was just the cat. Why isn't it just the cat? This is too much. Why have I done this? And every now and then, even though I'm really far into my healing, I think about, oh my God, wouldn't it just be nice if I could just go away for a weekend with Alex and we don't have to think about anything. It's that freedom to just do what you want to do whenever you want. That has gone, and that has been hard for me. And yes, there are other positives, but I'm here to talk about the things that people don't want to talk about today. So yeah, and so then, you know, there's this whole thing of you not being cared for, not feeling like you have emotional support. My postnatal doula was really the only person I felt like I could talk to about how crazy I felt. Had a few mom friends, but even then you kind of censor things, because you know they're also going through mumhood as well, and you don't want to be like too full on. And obviously my best friend, she was a rock. She's had kids, she's been through the same psychotherapy as me, she's got a background of having eating disorders, and she like completely understood. So anyway, I really realised that there was like quite a big problem when I was about 10 weeks, and my partner was like, you're really unhappy, you need to do something. He didn't want me to go on antidepressants, so I was like, great, so you want me to do something but not do that, which is a whole other debate. When I was like, actually I should have been able to do what I wanted, and at one point I thought maybe antidepressants will be the right thing for me, just to feel like I'm not on a nerve ending all the time. But of course men can't understand, because they're not you, they're not postpartum. Yes, their life changes, but largely, let's be honest, they don't get it. So how can they? They haven't done it, they don't have the hormones, they don't have the irrationality, which, you know, it's not always irrational, but, you know, largely when I sat back and looked at my life, and it was in that place where I was like, okay, should I take antidepressants so I can just be a better mum? Like, I'm a great mum, obviously. I think every mum is doing a fucking amazing job, to be honest. I'm just like, fucking get to the end, do the best you can. Like, whatever you got to do to get through, whether it's Weetabix for 3 meals a day for like a week or something, I don't know. But like, I remember sitting there, and everything I know about holistic health and well-being, I was like, okay, if I look at myself from the outside, I can see all the discrepancies here. I've obviously relapsed into my eating disorder. So first I need to eat, but that was hard because mentally my state was bad, but also because my mental state wasn't great. I couldn't eat, so that was the thing. I felt really unfulfilled in astrology, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people, but I was like, this just isn't the thing. And I've always always been in this position where I had to like hustle or try and make something work because I'd never had time to really train in something I deeply wanted to do, or finances, until the last few years. And I was like, okay, I'm in a position where I could, that's an issue. I also really felt that I didn't have the emotional support, so that's why I found a new mentor, and also felt that my environment was a piece, in that I just needed my own space, and I still do. I still need my own house, my own space. I've lived on my own since I was like 18 or something, on and off, and I'm like, I need to have my own space. It's a big thing for me. So these were all factors, and I think whenever we're ill, mentally, emotionally, physically, we need to look at the story of health. We need to look at our environment, our relationships, our food, our career, because ultimately with depression or anxiety, those sorts of things, it's the spirit that's sunk, and we've lost a sense of purpose. We're not nourished enough. There's a lot of things. So nourishment was a key piece in my recovery. But it was kind of like we were going on holiday when she was like 3 months, when she was 4 months, went on a lot of holidays, and I couldn't enjoy really a moment because it was just like I couldn't cope. There's just feeling all the time like I can't stop, there's too much to do, I can't enjoy life. And I remember I'd saved up to take us on a really nice holiday. I hadn't saved up, but I'd splurged on a really nice holiday because the business had done really well, and I thought, this is going to be a really nice treat for us for a few, it was something nice to reward myself. I went away to Kefalonia. It's my favourite Greek island. I was really excited. The whole time I was just so stuck in this feeling of like, it just felt crazy. The rage, the fatigue, the tiredness, the lack of being able to let go. Alex proposed to me on that holiday, but largely I don't remember it for that. I remember it for being like so exhausted and feeling like I never had any time with him, because if it was me and him, like someone has the baby and then someone else could do something they want to do for their well-being. Largely for me it was yoga. I can't take the baby out in the sun. It was a stupid idea in reflection to book the holiday, but whatever. I didn't know, and I was naive to all this stuff, and I actually thought with all my practices, like I say, that I would be fine postpartum, and probably most people are, I don't know, but my relationship with control and food just came to a head. So then at 10 weeks I was like, okay, I need to do something. Maybe it was 12 weeks, she was about 3 months old, and I found homeopathy, worked with a homeopath, used it for Bonnie, was like, what the hell, how have I never used this? Really researched into it and found like it was an amazing form of medicine. And I just thought, oh my god, why have I never even been using this? And that was really the thing that helped me to start to feel normal again. And I'm kind of like 6 months into my homeopathic healing journey. I've done a lot of detoxes from HPV, the Gardasil. I'm doing a detox from antibiotics at the moment. All these things that homeopathy can detox from your body, as well as these remedies that were matching like how I felt. And honestly, the way I feel now is so much better. And I think some of that does come down to you just start to get into motherhood. But honestly, like, I was not good at all. And I'm so thankful I found homeopathy. And then I obviously started to feel a sense of purpose, because I think homeopathy was like when I found my thing. Like, I'd done nutrition, but it wasn't my thing. And I was like, I need to find my thing. Homeopathy is absolutely 100% my thing. It's like deeply healing. It's like magic medicine. When Bonnie had like gastro a few weeks ago, she was like vomiting. I literally thought I needed to take her to A&E. And then I sat down and thought, let's find that homeopathic remedy that's going to help her. Gave her one dose within 10 minutes after she'd been limp and vomiting and like completely a different child. Within 10 minutes she was running around in a walker asking for food. I was like, what? So let me tell you, that's just one example of how insanely powerful homeopathy is. It's so healing. And in situations like that, I thought, why did I not have this in the first 8 weeks when she had horrendous colic? And when she had really bad eczema, she was having night terrors. I think these were all related to the birth, to be honest, because we had a quick, fast, sudden birth. And the remedy that I had thought was the right one for her was related to birth trauma, and that cleared her eczema. She was like a different baby. She could sleep again. And she had a good month of just screaming. Like, it was just really bad. And there was no real reason for it, to be honest. As in physically, she wasn't teething. She wasn't even going through a developmental leap. It was really difficult. And thank God that I had found homeopathy when I did, because honestly, I don't know what state I'd be in now. I probably would have just had antidepressants, which is also fine. Like, there's no judgment here for that, because I still have them in my house, my prescription, because I think if I ever feel like actually this is just too much of a chemical imbalance, it's too much, I think the thing was I didn't want to waste time where I could be enjoying Bonnie. And don't get me wrong, like now I'm kind of like at a point in my healing journey where there's one thing that's coming up, and that's the grief, the loss of my mum, feeling like she's not here. Oh my God, roadhogs, motorbike squad, feeling like she's not here to be with me, to be my unconditional fallback. And there comes to this part where I have to mother myself, and that's hard, because all of a sudden the weight of like Bonnie, this child that I have to love and bring up, and actually realising I am going to make mistakes. There will be times where I maybe shout, or I don't do the best I can, but in every moment I'm really trying to overcome the obstacles that come up emotionally. And so postpartum depression wise, I feel pretty good. I'm working with a new mentor because I did have a big eating disorder relapse, and I'm largely nourishing myself, but I feel like I'm on rocky ground, like the floor could collapse. And the thing is, I know the practices to do, but as a mum, you don't have as much time. I would love to spend my morning where I wake up, I can meditate, I can then do my yoga practice, can then do my affirmations. Like, I used to do all this morning ritual stuff. To hell, I can fucking do that now. Like, let's be honest, it's just not going to happen. I wake up and like Alex is away this week, so I wake up, have to feed her, get ready, then I have to feed her again. Then we have to just an endless list of things to do, because they basically need to eat every 3 hours, and when they're weaning, it's a whole thing. And most mums probably don't think about it as much as me, I guess, but that's just a little bit like my nature. So anyway, I am so thankful I found homeopathy. I'm so thankful that I was able to go through that really dark time, because I do believe that actually my practices did help, because postpartum wise, I remember about when she was 10 weeks old, feeling very suicidal. It was like something would go wrong and I was like, I can't cope, that's it. And I knew, because the difference was, because of all the work I've done, it didn't consume me. I was stepping back and going, wow, these thoughts are really powerful and these emotions are really powerful, but I don't want them to visit. It's kind of like this whole, every now and then I would get very defined by it, largely because I wasn't eating, so I clearly was. But some of them, when they were so overwhelming, it was like, okay, I'm watching these thoughts. I don't even want them to be visitors. I don't feel this is right. This shouldn't be how I feel. It shouldn't be how I feel. It was how I felt, but I didn't feel that was how I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel love and joy and enjoy this time in Bonnie's life. And if I'm honest with you, the first 6 months I have like largely no memory of. I was largely kind of just wishing time away, wishing that she'd be 5 years old, wishing I could get time to myself again. It is different now. Every mum, I think, wishes those things from time to time. I don't think that's abnormal. But now I'm in a much stronger position, and really happy that this journey will bring me a new dimension to what I do, this healing practice, this feeling of being completely lost, finding myself again, and you're never at the end road, but feeling like, okay, I've landed at a new point in my journey that feels like I can anchor a bit onto. So as you know, I'm training homeopathy. I'm doing like a 4-year degree course in like 2, so it's full on. And there's not even a break between them. It kind of goes from January to September, and then year 2 is September to June. But already they're asking us to take cases, so please, if you have like acute things that come up, feel free to reach out. I'm going to be sharing a lot more about homeopathy, or just general stuff, because talk about it all. But yeah, and then my piece with the integrative life coaching, I took a step back from that. I was too sick in my mind to even think about that, because I was like, who am I to be coaching when I'm an absolute car crash? Obviously I shouldn't be doing this. And actually now I'm like, okay, I feel at peace enough to again be the unprejudiced observer and really help my clients. So I have a handful of beautiful coaching clients, and I really am grateful for that, because I do believe that the more stuff that we experience, the better that we can help others and guide others. I really believe that. I mean, I know every single one of you will have had your own journey. You're probably sitting there thinking, I've been through this or that or the other, and that's something that if someone sat down with you and said, I'm struggling with this thing, and it's the exact thing you went through, you could help them in some way. And it's not about telling people what to do, of course, but if you can help other people, what a great gift, So that's going on. And of course, there was the piece, which I didn't even mention, this whole like culture. As soon as you get pregnant, you'll get targeted ads for trying to minimize weight gain during pregnancy. You don't need to eat more. Everyone says you don't need to eat more in the first or second trimester. No, that's wrong. The baby doesn't need more, but let me tell you, your body, you're hungry, you definitely need to eat more. There's just this whole culture of, it's diet culture on steroids, but with pregnancy it's so wrong. And then this lose the baby weight thing, I honestly hate it. It's the one thing that fucking grinds my gears beyond belief, because everyone kept saying to me, you look amazing, you bounce back. Even 5 days postpartum, I wasn't eating. I was literally pissing myself walking down the streets, not ha 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 laughing, full on weeing, because I had no control over my pelvic floor. There is shit that goes wrong, and people just telling you look amazing. It's so irrelevant. Why can't people just say, how are you feeling? Or it's irrelevant whether someone's bounced back or not. If someone bounces back to what? Because let me tell you, you're not supposed to look the same all the time. Your body is going to change. That's one thing. The other thing is, you have a baby. Let me tell you, I have support, and I find it hard to find time to do my yoga. I do yoga maybe five days a week or something. That's hard with a baby. I tried to get to the gym when I was 10 weeks postpartum. Now it was 6 weeks postpartum, and I'd really done a lot of core rehab. I used the Bloom method, and that was really, really good for me, because let's be honest, no one wants to piss themselves walking down the street, and within a week I'd stopped pissing myself, so that was good. And I felt like I had some control over my core again. And I do think it's important to physically heal your body so it's functional post-birth, just for your own sanity. But beyond that, this idea of getting back into shape, and I had this feeling that, like, oh, I've got a wedding in September, which it was someone else's wedding, I'm going on holiday, I need to get back into shape. So basically, like, not eating and, like, trying to exercise when I could, walking, like, miles a day. And I'm like, this is not sustainable. All in the name, because that diet culture had got so far in my head that it was not acceptable to put on weight post-baby. And still now, friends say to me, God, you know, you look great considering you've had a baby. This shouldn't be a thing. I would never dream of saying it. I know I think it when I scroll through Instagram, and every now and then I see these posts that are like, look at me, post-baby, or abs after mom, or like this mom abs. And I'm like, well, shit, I didn't have abs before I had a baby, so there's no fucking chance now. Like, but the point I'm making is, it's just horrendous. Like, I have no time for that shit in my life, but it really got me, and I felt like I have to get back to normal. But I think it was a lot about control, like trying to feel like I'd get back to some feeling of normality, like of something before, because change is clearly something that I've had to deal with quite on a deep level in my relationships. So anyway, that was a whole thing. And I guess, if I'm honest, I felt good because it was summer, but winter I felt like a slimy grease ball all the time. And I think there's a certain degree of that as a mom, because basically there's always, like, it doesn't matter what you put on, like, you're going to end up covered in something. Or you might just put on like just black, because you're like, oh, they can't stain black. They'll stain black with sick. You'll put clothes on them, they'll be sick. Like, it's just, yeah, it's a whole thing. So that was another thing I think that contributed to me not feeling enough. It's a whole insipid thing that I think I'm going to rant about a lot more, because I think more women need to be empowered with that, because I just think it's really entrenched in our culture, this idea of postpartum weight loss. It's disgusting. I have no time for it. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what has gone on the last few months. So now you know where I've been at. I'm just by the lake, but I'm going to turn around because it's freezing and otherwise it's going to be too windy, you won't hear me. But yeah, that's where I've been at. And I feel so proud of myself that I got through it. I have learnt how to bring myself back from dark places quite quickly. That's probably the darkest point of my life, if I'm honest. I don't know why. I think a lot of it was deferred from other times. I learnt that there were so many ways I could integrate everything into my healing. I learnt that there were so many more important things than really are more important things than what you look like. But I learned this on a much deeper level. I learned that your sanity is so important, that family is really important, and love is the only thing that you're going to take with you out of this life. The connections, the memories, those are the only things that we can really keep. And I also learned that we can come back from things, that we can feel even better than when we began. You know, there's this idea that, you know, we're never quite the same after trauma. We never feel like I remember saying that I lost my spirit when I lost my mum, and a big part of me died, and I never really found that again. I was kind of like faking it a little bit. I was not like in a terrible place, but I never really found that spark of joy again. And now I feel it on steroids. You know, I feel that I'm able to let that in. And it's not every moment of every day, because I still get tired, I still get premenstrual, and I'm not feeling super great just yet. But I have all the tools, and I've been able to use them in a really challenging time. So I think it's genuine when I say that motherhood changed me in the best way, but not in the way that people would think, when people say that motherhood changed me in a really good way, I don't think they quite understand the weight of that for many women. It's like an unspoken code where all women know that there's this suffering, and I guess on some level maybe suffering is the price we pay for love. How can you feel love if you've never known sorrow, right? And how can you really treasure everything unless you know that it's not here forever? If you were here forever, would you really love everything in the same way? Because you could always do it tomorrow, or but we have such a short time span on this planet. You have such a short time span on this planet, and what do you want to fill it with? How do you want to feel? Do you want to thrive, or do you want to stay the same? There's no right or wrong answer here, but it's just saying, what do you want to do with this short time you have on this planet? Because that's important, and if you're waiting, time is constantly moving. Our life isn't guaranteed. Tomorrow isn't a promise. So how can you really enjoy it? And so I guess maybe I didn't want to sound so morbid at the end, but hey ho. Listen, so now I'm opening up my Reiki healing. This is really great for mums. I really want to open up my Reiki healing. It's distance Reiki. Believe me, it's still hella strong. And you can schedule it any time, because Reiki works beyond the time-space restrictions. So I could send it 8 a.m. this morning for you to receive at 2 o'clock next week on a certain day and time, basically. And you can receive it in the comfort of your own home. So you lie down, put some relaxing music on, and then you receive a Reiki treatment, literally as if you're there in real life. And I'll often use gong and crystal bowls as well. You won't hear those, but the vibration is moving through, kind of the subtle matter. You will get the healing treatment. I actually did one yesterday for a friend. She'd been quite sick. I didn't know what with, but I knew from Reiki exactly what was going on, and it was really helpful to her. She slept well. She hadn't slept in weeks, so she was a mum and she was really struggling. I've also done it for a friend who had a lot of trauma downstairs postpartum, and it was easing her pain quite a lot. Those are just a few examples I can think of at the top of my head. But 100%, if you feel like you want some TLC, you're a mum and you don't have any time to drive to the place, get the massage, get the Reiki, and then drive home or something like that, then this is a way that you can receive Reiki just before your bedtime, or it's a half an hour treatment, and you can receive it at a time that suits you. And postpartum, I think it's really powerful. But even if you're not a mum and you think, I really want to heal with Reiki, I think it will benefit you. And I can also make some homeopathic recommendations based on how you're feeling. I'm not a fully trained homeopath yet, but I can definitely point you in the right direction if there's something that's coming up for you that is really feeling limiting and stopping you from really being and feeling your best. So you can find peace. You can move beyond where you are now. I know you can, because I've done it time and time again, and I've seen my clients do it time and time again. It's getting noisy here, so I'm just going to pause. So anyway, thank you for listening, and if you got this far, well done, you deserve a medal. And I hope that you have a great weekend, or whenever I publish this. Maybe it'll be next week. Anyway, speak to you soon, and lots of love. And if you want to reach out for Reiki, you just email me, hello@cassieaurora.com. My website is completely set up for astrology. That is another thing I have not changed, because life. But I will. I'll get around to it eventually. All right. Speak soon, and sending you a big hug from me to you.